Security Council has approved on Monday a US-drafted resolution supporting President Donald Trump's peace plan for Gaza.
Russian drones attacked the Ukrainian city of Dnipro, injuring 2 and damaging the city's newsroom of public broadcaster Suspilne.
Ursula von der Leyen has urged EU countries to come up with a plan by December to bridge Ukraine's financing gap.
With those in favor of the draft resolution,
The US plan for Gaza has been approved by the UN Security Council. The vote endorses US President Donald Trump's peace plan, also known as the 20-point ceasefire plan. The plan proposes the creation of a board led by Trump to oversee governance and reconstruction in Gaza. It also calls for the establishment of an international stabilization force.
Thank you to the council
While the proposal outlines a potential path towards an independent Palestinian state, the language remains weak, offering neither a timeline nor any guarantees. 13 out of 15 members voted in favor of the resolution. Russia, which submitted a separate proposal on Gaza last week, along with China, abstained the vote but did not use its veto power. Trump applauded the vote, calling it one of the biggest approvals in the history of the United Nations. Hamas, on the other hand, opposed the resolution. The group believes it fails to meet Palestinian people's political and humanitarian demands and that it does not safeguard their rights.
U.S. President Donald Trump announced on Monday he will sell F-35 jets to Saudi Arabia, despite some concern surrounding the sale from within the administration. His comments came on the eve of Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman's highly anticipated Washington visit, his first to the United States in more than 7 years.
They want to buy. They've been a great ally. They've got to like us very much. Look at the Iran situation, what we did in terms of obliterating, we obliterated their nuclear capability. Yeah, I will say that we will be doing that.
Some members of Trump's administration have been wary about potentially upsetting Israel as Trump is trying to persuade Saudi Arabia and Israel to normalize relations. On Friday, Trump said he hoped Saudi Arabia would be joining the Abraham Accords, a pact that formalized commercial and diplomatic ties between Israel and a trio of Arab nations. Russian drones attacked the Ukrainian city of Dnipro overnight into Tuesday, damaging the city's newsroom of public broadcaster Suspilne and Ukrainian radio Dnipro. Suspilne said windows and doors were blown out, the roof and ceilings were damaged, and a fire broke out. No staff were inside at the time of the attack. The nationwide public broadcaster operates television, radio, and online news across regional outlets throughout Ukraine. Throughout the city, several fires broke out as a result of the attack, damaging private businesses, garages, apartment buildings, and shops. The regional governor said 2 people were injured and a total of 30 drones were shot down. Russian forces also launched missiles at the city of Berestyn in the Kharkiv region, killing a 17-year-old girl and injuring 9 others, according to regional authorities. Ukraine's Air Force said Russia launched a total of 4 ballistic missiles and 114 drones at Ukraine overnight, of which 101 drones were intercepted.
The attacks on Ismail port began at midnight, but it wasn't until morning that the locals saw that a tanker was also attacked. It was on fire, and that was the moment that the authorities decided that the people from village Plauru needs to be evacuated. After a few hours, authorities estimated that the people from the village Chatalkyoi needs to be evacuated also. There are 300 persons now that are coming with this ship to Tulcha. They will stay overnight here until the authorities will decide what will happen next. It was a critical situation these hours because the ship is still on fire and we don't know what it will happen. But authorities thought that the situation is critical and it's very dangerous for the people to remain at their homes. Military from these areas were also evacuated, and you see now that authorities are transporting people to a safe place until maybe the Ukrainians will manage to stop the fire. The tanker is full with GPL, and we don't know what it will happen if that tank will explode. Diana Sobaru, Euronews, Romania.
Poland's Prime Minister Donald Tusk has described a weekend explosion along a railway line linking Warsaw to southeastern Poland as an unprecedented act of sabotage that could have led to disaster. There were no casualties from the incident, but Tusk, who visited the site on Monday, said the line is crucially important for delivering aid to Ukraine. Officials said further inspections found damage to sections of track along the railway line.
Prawdopodobieństwo, że dzieje się to na zlecenie obcych służb, jest bardzo wysokie i decyzje prokuratury kwalifikujące to zdarzenie również to potwierdzają.
The attack comes amid a campaign of sabotage in Poland and other European countries that has been attributed to Russian security services over EU support for Ukraine. Polish authorities say they have already launched an investigation into the blast, as well as another incident over the weekend that appeared to involve rail sabotage.
Ursula von der Leyen has urged EU countries to come up with a plan by December to bridge Ukraine's financing gap. Based on IMF projections that the war could end by the end of 2026, Ukrainian budgetary and military needs for the next 2 years amount to 135 billion euros. In a letter on Monday, the President of the European Commission outlined 3 different options for providing additional financial support to Ukraine. 90 billion euros in EU countries' bilateral contributions. The assistance would be disbursed as a non-repayable grant and be accounted against the member states' national budgets. Joint debts, the interest would have to be covered by either national guarantees or the bloc's common budget, and 140 billion euros in a reparations loan based on frozen Russian assets. Kyiv would be asked to repay the loan only after Moscow agrees to compensate for the damages. Fearing potential legal ramifications, Belgium has repeatedly opposed issuing reparations loan to Kyiv based on Russian assets held at Euroclear, a financial services company headquartered in Brussels. Von der Leyen's meeting with Belgian Prime Minister Bart de Wever last Friday to advance the talks has so far resulted in limited progress.
Ukraine has signed a deal to buy up to 100 Rafale fighter jets from France. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky signed a letter of intent in Paris alongside his French counterpart Emmanuel Macron. This agreement is expected to take place over a 10-year period, according to the Élysée Palace.
Avec cet accord, nous continuons à miser sur le rapprochement et l'intégration de nos industries de défense pour continuer à soutenir l'Ukraine, la modernisation de ses forces armées qui restent en première ligne et qui sont la première ligne de défense de l'Europe, et la dissuasion contre l'agression. Et nous le faisons dans la durée.
Zelensky called the deal historic, and in addition to fighter jets, Ukraine will also purchase drones and other defense systems.
Дуже сильні французькі радари, 8 систем протиповітряної оборони, сам ті по 6 пускових. Ну це деталі, напевно, це для когось технічні деталі, а для нас це важливо. Кожна пускова, все це захист кожного життя. Це дуже важливо.
Macron believes that the agreement will strengthen Kiev's deterrence capability and prevent any attempt at incursion in the future.
South African-born artist Ralph Zeeman has spent his life fighting violence, not with weapons but with art. His monumental installations reinterpret military symbols to transform them into tools for dialogue and reflection.
Even as a young kid, I was very much aware of the injustice. I was brought up by my parents, but also very much by the African staff who worked at my house. To see the sheer brutality that the apartheid state brought down on black people to keep them in fear and suppressed really made an impression on me.
Weapons of Mass Production is a three-piece art project consisting of replicas of an AK-47 assault rifle, a Casper armoured personal carrier, and an MiG-21 fighter jet. Each of these objects was covered with millions of glass beads, crafted by African artisans.
It was seen as a low craft. It was done by black people under apartheid. It was something that was sold to tourists and perceived as having very little value. I wanted to take those skills and those talents and turn it into modern contemporary art.
According to the artist, each part of the project symbolizes a different dimension of violence.
So the first was the AK-47. It dealt with gun violence. It dealt with the proliferation of weapons. The second in the series was the Casper. It was designed and built in South Africa in the 80s, and they sold them to repressive governments around the world. So thirdly, coming to the MiG-21, is the most mass-produced supersonic fighter jet of all time.
Zeman believes that physical proximity to an object of war, transformed into an art piece, is an act of reclaiming power over violence. Each bead, hand-arranged by hundreds of artists, becomes a gesture of resistance against the militarization of the world.
The whole world is on a knife edge. I think it's good to have a counter-narrative to all of this. In a world that's increasingly dangerous, I think these are things we should be discussing.
The MiG-21 project has garnered significant media attention. Eventually, the aircraft will be sold, and all proceeds will go towards funding educational programs and art therapy.